Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to review the six-figure paycheck to paycheck scenario, which is something we talk about from time to time in this channel. Now, before we actually go into the velocity banking part of this video, one thing I always recommend that you do is do a quick Google search about how many people who earn six figures are living paycheck to paycheck. And there are many mainstream news articles that talk about at least 50% who earn more than $100,000 report living paycheck to paycheck, right? Paycheck to paycheck, CNBC, paycheck to paycheck, half $100,000 earners live paycheck to paycheck. So when I was broke and making close to near minimum wage, that really blew my mind. I was like, how can you be paycheck to paycheck? And when you figure out how the average person um, how they conduct their life, there's this phenomenon called segregation of income, right? Segregation of income. So the idea is that because your money is separated up the wazoo in too many places, it's not as effective as if it had just been in one place. And actually, before I even get to that, I actually recommend if you've never heard of velocity banking, go ahead and click the link down below to Velocity Banking 101. Get a firm foundation and basic concept of what velocity banking is about, and then come back here to continue your studies. Now, again, there's a concept of segregation of income. And so I've talked to a good number of you on our Zoom calls, and turns out you're making good money, right? You and your spouse combined may be making like more than $200,000 a year, and yet I've heard I'm paycheck to paycheck, right? And one of the reasons you're probably paycheck to paycheck is because of the segregation of income phenomenon. So when you get your paycheck, it's split into too many places up the wazoo, and it's not as effective had you just put your paycheck into one operating account. And that's what happens in the average American scenario. We have segregation of income. Okay. So that's probably the main reason why you're living paycheck to paycheck as a high income earner. If you're not making that money, making a lot of money, that's an income problem, right? You need to make more income. But once you make too much income and you're still paycheck to paycheck, that's a cash flow management problem. Okay. And so in this example, we're going to figure out how velocity banking can help us as a semi-high six-figure earner, right? We're making $125,000 a year salary. And so a lot of these figures I got from those calculator, banking and loan calculator websites. So let's just assume that we're living paycheck to paycheck. We make 125,000 annual salary. So that's about $7,000 a month after tax. And we list all our expenses, right? We list all our expenses, and our expenses, I mean, we're not living zero after, well, if you get the paycheck and minus expenses, we have a little bit left over, almost about $200. But if you're making about six figures and you only have $200 left over, that's kind of like a joke, you know? That's a total joke. But first things first, whenever we do velocity banking, again, always have your budget, right? So we have our budget, we have our paycheck, we have our expenses, and then we always do the expense breakdown. And what's important, I always say this in every single video, is that in your expense breakdown, you have to list every single debt that you have. So here we have a credit card A, B, student loan, car loan, mortgage, and this one's a master's degree. So I looked up the average figures of a master's degree, and that's how we got that sweet six-figure salary. We got a brand new home, $300,000 and a 7%, about $2,000 monthly payment. And not only that, we have other things like food, gas, insurance, all that. And so when this adds up, right, it's almost at that $7,000 mark, and we're feeling a pinch because uh, we decide to YOLO with two credit cards, right? Maybe we need some trips. We bought some furniture. In fact, if you buy furniture, it's really easy to rack up credit card debt. This is why I don't have any new furniture. And if I'm going to get furniture, to decorate a house, is probably be for like a short-term rental if I had one. But I'm okay with basic furniture. I like buying computers. Computers are pretty cheap, like $607 for a brand new computer, desktop connected to Ethernet. As you notice here, I don't even use Wi-Fi. You know what I'm saying? I don't use Wi-Fi in the house because I like strong connections that don't get broken up because you're, broadcasting internet throughout the air. But that's just me, right? So here we have a bunch of debts. And why is it important that we list all our debts? Because every single debt that we have is cash flow taken away with us that we essentially need to recover, right? So every debt removed is cash flow recovered. I mean, easy enough, right? So that's why you have to write down every single debt. And so here we got a nice house mortgage, $300,000. But let's just assume that the area that we live in has greatly appreciated. So for whatever reason, in 1 year, that $300,000 home has turned into a $400,000 home, which means that we have $100,000 in equity, and banks will allow us to borrow from that equity in the form of a line of credit, which is essentially almost like a credit card on a house. So let's assume that we have an $80,000. So they won't let you the whole 100,000, right? They'll lend you 80% of what you call your equity, right? So when pretend we have an $80,000 credit card, which we call a home equity line of credit. It's a little bit more flexible than a credit card, but assume we have that. And this is going to be our operating account. And let's just assume that, maybe we don't have an introductory rate. We're going to be a little bit conservative here. But usually when I've gotten home equity lines of credit, I've gotten a 0% rate for maybe 6 months to a year. I've actually gotten two home equity lines of credit. So the first one, I got it for a year, 0%. Second one, I got it for 6 months. So it depends on what type of line of credit you get, where you get at. All terms and conditions will differ based on your personal situation. But let's say I got an $80,000 home equity line of credit. Again, think of this as a credit card based on your house, but a little bit more flexible. This is our main velocity banking tool, operating account, right? So for the average American, they do everything outside with the checking account, right? And we pay bills out of our checking account. And we're afraid to make extra payments on the credit card just because, if we don't have this $200 in our savings or checking, at least we have a little bit of cushion, because that's kind of like the mentality here. And so now we're just feeling it, right? Maybe whatever reason we had to spend 30,000, we spent it on a trip or a wedding or something like that. And then $20,000 here because we moved into a new house. We needed to buy that great furniture. It's really easy to spend a lot of money on furniture in a $20,000 house. Now, let's figure out how we can easily free up some cash flow using our line of credit, doing the velocity banking way. So now we're going to do our velocity banking budget. So I'm going to put $7,000 here, right? $7,000. Actually, let me copy and paste the formatting here. Okay, so $7,000. Now let's hold off on our expenses. Now, when we're doing velocity banking, we're usually not going to have checking or savings, because our line of credit is where we pull out their money, and we're going to use our cash flow to put the balance of the line of credit down. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. So we're going to calculate our expenses, but this is what we're going to do. What we're going to do is do some debt transfers to free up our cash flow, right? And then pay off our line of credit by transferring the entire paycheck to this line of credit. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, which debts do I pay off with our line of credit? Well, there's some criteria you can use. You could use like the lowest balance, the highest interest rate, right? And the biggest monthly payment. So there's also other criteria. You may have heard of it, and I'm not going to go too deep into it, called the cash flow index, right? So basically, all that is the payment amount, or so the balance divided by the monthly payment. So I'll just kind of do this here: 30,000 divided by 1050, right? And equals 20,000 divided by 700. And the idea is that if this is a low number, these are the debts you want to pay off first. And if it's a high number, you want to pay that off last, because the idea is that if the monthly payment is very low compared to the loan amount, that's eating up less cash flow. So you want to pay off the debts that are eating up more cash flow. And the interest rate doesn't really matter. Now, I care about the interest rate because I don't want to pay like $1 a month and to find out I have like 100% interest rate, right? Even though that's not realistic. But this is one measure of how we would figure out of which loan we're going to pay off. But let's just kind of calculate all the cash flow indexes. So 50,000 divided by 568, and then 25,000 divided by 489. Wait, 489. Okay. And then 300,000 divided by 2,000, right? And so as you can see here, these are the lowest numbers. This is the second lowest number, so we're going to try to get rid of that first, and then we get rid of our student loan, and then we get rid of our mortgage, right? Now, the other food, gas, insurance, we can't do anything about that because those are fixed expenses. But all the loans and the debts and the credit cards, once we get rid of them, then we have cash flow galore, right? That's cash flow freed up to pay off our other debts. Okay, so now that we know which debts to pay off, again, we have our line of credit at a 10% interest rate. Sometimes it's 0% the first 6 to 12 months. But let's just think worst case scenario with our home equity line of credit, because when we bought the home, maybe we're making $2,000 a month payments for a year, and then bam, the home value exploded, appreciated by $100,000, and we're able to get a line of credit for $80,000 of that, right? Sometimes it happens, especially in 2021, 22. That may have happened to you where the home value exploded for no reason, just because people were in a buying frenzy for any type of home, right? So let's do this. So we have our cash flow index, which is one measure of how we can determine which loans to pay off. So these are the loans that are quote most inefficient, according to Garrett Gunderson, the Wealth Factor. So Google Garrett Gunderson and the Wealth Factory if you want to figure out, more about the cash flow index system. Okay, so now this is what we do. Okay, so what we're going to do is transfer these to the line of credit. So if I do 50,000, guess what? I make a transfer from credit card A and credit card B, and this is 0, and this is 0, right? So we're still going to have the student loan and the car loan and the mortgage and the other, right? But we'll pay these off a little later, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to sum this up. So it'll be C8 to C13, right? Oh, did I make a mistake? Yeah, I did. So, all right. So sum that up. All right. So now, right, we freed up about 1750 in cash flow. And then let's figure out our cash flow, which is C2 minus C3. Okay, so we now have $2,000 in cash flow. So previously, we were just having $193 put in our savings, checking savings, and we're afraid to touch it because it's so little and we're scraping by, right? But here, all we did is just one debt transfer, and now we have about $2,000 in cash flow, okay? So now what we do, again, the strategy is you put your entire paycheck into this line of credit, take out your expenses accordingly, and then the balance of the line of credit about almost pretty much every month will go down about near the cash flow. I get it. There's interest that we're going to add. We're not going to add it in this video just because to make the demonstration easier. There are more accurate ways to calculate this, but just to make it easy for the sake of the video, we're going to just estimate the balance that goes down and say it's going to go down about by how much cash flow we have. So just to do this, so the way that we do this is just subtract G2 minus the cash flow, which is 1943. Okay. So all we do is just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. Okay. All right. So this is going to take us a little bit of time, right? So let's calculate how many months it takes us. So just be I2 plus 1. And then if we go down here, so it'll take us a little bit more than 2 years to pay this $50,000 off, which is great because most people probably would take 5 to 10 years to pay off $50,000. I mean, think about the student loans, right? People took out these massive student loans and are begging the federal government to please pause them. And now because they're resuming, because people are probably more screwed because they just pause their student loans and probably splurged or something, and now probably more debt. But let's just assume that we're responsible people. We're paying off these 2 credit cards. Maybe we splurged a little bit. Maybe we bought too much furniture. But let's see how much interest that we're going to pay. So this is a definite win because the interest on the line of credit is definitely less than the 30% interest on the credit card, right? So let me just kind of do this right here. So equals I, to calculate the interest or to estimate the calculation of the interest, again, this isn't too exact, right? You just take the last month's balance, times it by the interest rate, and then divide by 12. So I just take G2, I'm sorry, G2 times 10% and then divide by 12. And you say, why divide by 12? Because the interest rate is quoted annually, APR, annual percentage rate. And to get the monthly interest, you just divide by 12, right? And so now let's sum this up. So all you gotta do is click this auto sum thing here, auto sum button. And it took us a little bit over 2 years to pay $5,000. And we pay $5,000 in interest, or about $5,000 in interest, to pay off $50,000 in debt. Now, the thing is, we're living paycheck to paycheck. You know what I'm saying? So being able to pay off $50,000 of debt at 30% interest, and we're able to do it in about 25, 26, or maybe add a couple more months there. Amazing, right? And we didn't sweat it. Here, if we ever needed a month, maybe like $2,000, an extra $2,000, we would have been sweating, right? But here, anytime this process, we need 1,000, 2,000. Yeah, it's inconvenient, but all we have to do is just increase the payoff, right? We'll just add a couple more months. But because we have so much cash flow, or much more than we had in the checking savings, we're doing okay, right? Maybe not as ideal. Maybe we want more cash flow to be released, okay? But that's not a big deal. So let's just kind of do this. I'll just say this took us about 27 months, 27 or 28. We'll just say 28 months. So let's say 28 months. And then to pay off 50K, right? And how much cash flow do we recover? We recovered 1750 in cash flow. Okay. All right. So now let's just kind of reset this, right? All right, so let's go ahead and reset this. And now what do we pay off? We pay off the next lowest cash flow index number. Okay, so what we can do is we can just put the $25,000 here. Now I get it, within 2 years, it's not going to be a $25,000 balance. I get it, right? So, but let's just, for the sake of the exercise, just pretend that it's still 25,000. It'll just make our lives a little bit easier. So 25,000, and then all right, so now let's just pay it off. So it's going to go about $2,000 every month. So now it's G2 minus 1943. And then we just do copy and paste, and this will be 0. Okay. So now I think if we pay off this car loan off, I think we'd be in a much better position. So 0, and then let me just do this, no, I'm sorry, that's I2 plus 1. Let me kind of calculate how many months it's going to take us. So again, paying off the car is going to take us about a year, right? And it's probably going to take us less because we're making some payments there. Okay, no worries. So let's calculate the interest equals sum. And again, some people have pointed out, hey, isn't the interest added to the balance of the loan? Yes, it is. But again, we're just trying to make this simple enough so you get the concept. It's like inaccurate to a point, but accurate enough that you'll get it. So I'm sorry, not sum. You take the previous month's balance. Again, this is all estimated because the interest is actually a calculation of the average daily balance, but G2 times the interest rate, which is 10%, and you divide by 12. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get that over. So let's go ahead and sum it up. And now that we've paid 1445.4. So 1445.4, that's the amount Oh, I'm sorry. No. Do we show? Okay. So actually, I didn't even put the interest, but no worries. Okay. So let's just do this. How many months did it take us? It took us about 12 months. So we'll just say, 13 months for good measure. No, I'll just say 14. I mean, we didn't account for the interest. Again, we're just pretending. But 1445 would just essentially be another month because the cash flow is about $2,000, and then we just add another month for that to count for the interest. Okay, so 14 months for 25K, and how much cash flow did we immediately? Um, Actually, I did this wrong. So let me go ahead and do this. Right? So this is even better. You guys get to see me make a mistake in the video. So let's just do this. So equals G 2 minus 2432, right? Because when we transfer this car loan to the line of credit, then the 489 gets released in our cash flow, right? So now, oh, I'm so excited. This is even a better result than I thought it would be. All right. So now, okay, it's going to take us about 10 to 11 months, right? 10 to 11 months, or a little bit less than a year. So our results were better than we expected. So now let's just calculate the interest, which is G2 times 0.1 divided by 12. And now let's do that. Okay. And now let's auto sum. Let's go ahead and auto sum this. So about $1,100, and we pay off. Okay. So 1,100, and it's paid off in about 10 months. 10 months. Okay. We'll just say 11 for good measure. So now this is 11 months. Okay. So 11 months, 25 grand, and it freed up $489 in cash flow. Okay. So $489 in cash flow. All right. Excellent. So now next is essentially the student loan, right? So again, if we pay for a couple months, so let's say we pay for 39 months, it's not going to be $50,000. Definitely not going to be that. But again, let's just assume worst case scenario. And again, our numbers will be off because we're overestimating the interest. So we're going to go for the next highest number. As you can see here, these numbers, the higher they get, the more what we call like efficient the loan is. So it may not be in your best interest to pay off these loans so quickly, right? Or you don't want to put the entire thing in a line of credit, right? But let's just, for the sake of the exercise, let's just do this, right? So we'll put it in the entire thing in the line of credit, but you could also do something called chunking, right? So when you have efficient loans that are lower interest rate, and the payment's not that high compared to the loan amount, just move pieces like, let's say, a $10,000 balance to the line of credit, and then subtract, let's say, $40,000. So it's going to be a $50,000 to $40,000 balance, and then just go for a rinse and repeat. You can do that too, right? It's probably better. I know from experience because I've done this many times. There are certain situations where chunking is better, and there are certain situations where moving the entire credit balance to the line of credit is better. So, for example, in the credit card situation, because the interest rate is way higher than this line of credit, you can move the whole thing and you'll be good. But in certain situations where it's lower, it may not be in your best interest, or you may want to just move pieces and because the cash flow that's released isn't enough to offset the high interest rate, or not, based on, not the high interest rate, based on the balance of the loan, right? If the balance is too high compared to that monthly payment, that's an efficient loan. And so that's why you don't really put, let's say, your entire mortgage in a high interest line of credit. Okay. So let's just assume that we did put the $50,000 of that student loan. So this is zero, right? So now this is $3,000 of cash flow. Okay, $3,000, and let's see how much it takes us, how long it takes us to free up, pay off this entire balance of the student loan. So equals G2 minus 3,000, And then we just keep copying pasting until this either goes to negative, right? So 0, and then we go to month 0 and then do I2, which is the previous month, plus 1. And then we just kind of copy and paste it. And so it's going to take us about a little bit more than more than a year, but less than 2 years to pay the student loan off. And so let's just calculate the interest one more time again. Again, same formula, which is G2 times 0.1, 10% divided by 12. And then we just do that. Okay, Control V, you just copy, and then we go ahead and sum it up. So about $3,000. So again, maybe another month's worth of payments. We'll just say 18 months just to be safe. So 18 months. And okay, so now how much did we pay off? 50K. And how much cash flow did release? 489. No, is it 489? No, 568. Sorry. 568 cash flow. All right. So now what's our last debt that we can free up, which is our mortgage, right? So again, if you have a lower interest rate mortgage, so take a look at this. This mortgage is $300,000, right? And it's a very efficient loan. So with these types of loans, we don't want to necessarily transfer the whole entire 80 to the credit line, right? And you can't put the whole entire thing into a credit line because the limit of the credit line is much lower. But even if we could, I don't think it would be the best idea. Okay. So what I would do is just maybe, let's say we'll quote chunk, maybe like let's say $18,000. Okay. So $18,000. So we have actually a velocity banking calculator that will kind of do this for us. And it's kind of like a cheat sheet, but I'm going to do it without the calculator for this video. So think about this. Okay, so now let's see how long it takes us. So what's going to happen is that we're going to transfer the mortgage balance, 300,000. So, and then all we have to do is subtract 18,000. So, right? So 300,000 minus 18,000 is 282. So this balance essentially becomes 282K. And then we just kind of rinse and repeat over and over again, right? So let's see how long it takes us for us to put our entire paycheck, take out our expenses, and have the cash flow bring down the balance of the line of credit. So what we do is really easy. So equals G2 minus 3,000, right? That's the cash flow. And as you can see, because we paid off so much of the other debts, it's a much easier process because we got so much more cash flow to kind of pay off the line of credit easily. So equals H, I'm sorry. So let's take the G2 times 0.1, 10% divided by 12. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and sum that up. So we pay about $500 to pay off, to use the $18,000. And so if you ever look at an amortization chart, it certainly will not take us 5 months to get there, right? Certainly not going to happen. But it's probably going to take us a couple years to get from 300 to 282 in the mortgage calculator. And we'll probably get to more detail in another video, but I'm just saying that it's probably not going to happen. So what we're going to do is kind of figure out how many times we have to quote chunk this. That's what we call it when we move our line of credit to attack the principal in small pieces of a big loan, which is the mortgage. So 300,000 divided by 18,000. How many times we got to do this? So it's going to take us 16 times. Okay. So 16.6 times 5, right? So it's 5 months. which will be 83 months in total. And then we see how many years it takes us. So about 7 years, okay? So 83 months to pay off 300,000. And again, these are overestimates because, when you pay off loans for a certain amount of time, the balance of the other loans will also go down as well. It's not like the loan stays in some sort of cryostasis. That doesn't happen at all. But we freed up $2,000 of cash flow. Okay. So now this person is a total winner. Okay. And so here we started out paycheck to paycheck. Now, did we have to work a little bit? We absolutely did, right? But we're not going to go our entire lives living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, for the first 28 months, we freed up 1750 in cash flow, and then we another year we freed up 489 cash flow, and another 18 months, 568. Now this one is going to take a little bit more time because it's the mortgage, but we released $2,000 in cash flow. But again, we used to be in the situation where we're like $200 in savings, and we're so grateful to have that. But now, $5,000 in cash flow, and how long did it take us? So let's go ahead and sum this up, right? So let's go ahead and sum this up and check out how many months it took us. So this would be 28 plus 11 plus 18 plus 83, right? And let me divide by 12. So it took us about 12 years to kind of get us out of this hole. And that's kind of the thing about, making more money. There are situations out there where you make less money and you'll be quicker out of debt just because you're not, you don't have the privilege of making bad choices with more income, right? So sometimes that can happen. And the biggest issue that high income earners have is that segregation of income. Your income goes here, 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 and then it's all over the place, and then magically you're living paycheck to paycheck. And that six-figure salary didn't really mean anything, right? So again, there's a certain point where, yes, you need more income to live. That's an income problem. But then there's a certain point where you make enough income and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm still paycheck to paycheck. That's a cash flow management problem. So that's why, again, maybe this might not, if you're six figures and broke, this may not help you, but this is what I do in my personal life to help me out so that, even if I have like $100,000 in credit card debt, I can easily sleep at night. Okay. All right. So not giving you any personal legal financial advice because I'm not licensed any way to do that, but this is just my take on it. So this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. If you have any questions, comments, leave them below. If you're interested in joining our group, go ahead and click the Google form link below. Fill in your information, submit it, and we'll give you a contact, and we'll get on a one-on-one Zoom call. And also, if you want to email us, go to the About section of the YouTube channel, and you can find our email address there. Okay, have a great day, and we will speak next time.